Hello, my name is Mike Skaggs, and today I'm going to be doing my final poetry presentation on The Emperor of Ice Cream, an analysis by me, Mike Skaggs. So, for the thesis, I stated that in The Emperor of Ice Cream by Wallace Stevens, he uses a series of imagery to explain that life is not always what you think. So, sometimes you just take a step back and look a little deeper to see what's really going on around you. So, I decided to format this by breaking it up into two lines, and then analyzing the poem bit by bit. I thought it would just be easier, so we're gonna go about it that way. So in the first two lines, they state, "Call the roller of big cigars, the muscular one, and bid him a whip." So here you can't really gather much. The imagery is there, but from these first two lines, out of context, there's not much you can gather. But you can see that there's a man. He rolls big cigars. We can assume that's what he does for a living, and he's quite muscular. But there is imagery there indeed. This is a slightly better. So in lines 2 through 4, it states, "In kitchen cups, concupiscent curds, let the wenches dawdle in such dress." So once again here, we can gather that we're in some kitchen, some setting. So right from the start, you can see the imagery is showing us where we're at. We're in a kitchen, and there's some curds of some sort. And the next line, "Let the wenches dawdle in such dress." Wenches is not a very pleasant term to be described as, so we can assume that these women are not of proper standards. They're not, great women. But once again, there's some imagery right there. And the next lines, 5 and 6, "As they are used to wear, and let the boys bring flowers in last month's newspaper." So once again, we have imagery here. So the boys are bringing flowers in last month's newspaper. We can assume, since it's last month's newspaper, it is kind of old. And if it's old, chances are that uh, they found it laying around, or it's just not, the new thing. And also, if you're going to wrap flowers in newspaper rather than something proper, you probably don't have much lying around. You just grab whatever's closest. So right here, you can assume that wherever they're at, whatever kitchen they're at, it's not a very lavish setting. It's quite depressing, actually. And a lot of people they seem to be on the poorer side, just from the first few lines of the poem. But once again, there's some more imagery. Lines 7 and 8. "Let be fine ale of seam. The only emperor is the emperor of ice cream." So this line doesn't make much sense here in this context either, but the line right there, "The only emperor is the emperor of ice cream," we're going to get into that soon. There's not really much going on in these lines, but later on it kind of wraps together and you can see what's happening. Lines 9 and 10. "Take from the dresser of deal, lacking the 3 glass knobs." So, right here, once again, we have imagery. This poetry is littered with imagery. We can see that a dresser only has 3 glass knobs. Well, it's missing 3 glass knobs. So we can assume from this that the dresser is not in the greatest of shape. But why would there be a dresser in a kitchen? Well, the dresser's not in the kitchen, and we'll get to that shortly, because you can infer from the next few lines that we're in a quite depressing setting. "That sheet on which she embroidered fantails once, and spread it so as to cover her face." So this is some good imagery right here. So we're talking about a sheet. We don't really know what's going on at this point in the poem if you've just read up to this line. There's some lackluster people, some wenches, some old newspaper flowers. There's a man in a kitchen who rolls cigars. Um, So right now you don't really have an idea what's going on, but we're getting into the portion of the poem where you're starting to understand what's happening. So the imagery here, it's very detailed. The sheet on which she embroidered fantails. So obviously, this is a pretty nice looking sheet, and someone, whoever it is, it's spread across her face. Lines 13 to 14 really give you an idea of where we're at. If her horny feet protrude, they come to show how cold she is and dumb. So it seems like we're talking about a dead body here. You can kind of infer that from her cold feet. She's her dumb. She's obviously dead. She has a sheet over her face, and her feet are protruding from it. Once again, you can infer that she's not very wealthy. If she was, why would she not have a sheet that would cover her whole body? And the line, how cold she is, you can assume that she is dead, because generally people are not cold when they're alive. The imagery, her horny feet, that also is a pretty glaring symbol that she's not with us anymore, because when you pass away, rigor mortis sets in, and your body gets really stiff and cold and hard. So that's basically what these lines are explaining here. Lines 15 and 16. Let the lamp affix its beam. The only emperor is the emperor of ice cream. So we're back to that beginning line and the poem title. The only emperor is the emperor of ice cream. There's not much in this line. It's just more or less wrapping up the poem. But let the lamp affix its beam. We're assuming there's a light hanging over the dead woman's head, showcasing her coffin. We're assuming it's a funeral. You can't really be certain, but it's pretty easy to infer that. And the last line, the only emperor is the emperor of ice cream. What you can gather from this is, at least the way I took it, is, stop and take a look around. And just because you're doing something doesn't mean you're the top of everything. Everyone someday is going to die and end up in a coffin. And those holes are all going to be the same size, no matter what you do, no matter how important you think you are. So I think what this poem is trying to convey is it doesn't matter who you are or what you do. Someday death will take us all, and you should just take a step back and really, analyze what's going on around you. So back to my thesis wrap up. In The Emperor of Ice Cream by Wallace Stevens, he uses a series of imagery to explain that life is not always what you think. So take a step back and look deeper. As I mentioned in my poem, the imagery really aligns with the beliefs that I have in this poem. I really think it's about just taking a step back and seeing everything's not what it seems. And we all just get caught up in the commotion every day of life, and we don't really get to analyze what's happening around us. But I believe that Wallace Stevens is trying to portray this idea in his poem. Thank you, and that was my poetry final.